I've been already presented. I'm Javier Gamarra from the Madrid office, and I work on mobile applications and mobile infrastructure in Liferay. And I'm going to talk about how to build omnichannel experiences in Liferay, focused on the mobile part. So I'm pretty sure that many of you are already tired about talking about or hearing about omnichannel, multi-channel, cross-channel, etc. So I'm going to keep the introduction brief. So what are we talking when we say multi-channel? I know that all of you are used to working or using your mobile phone at the same time that you go to a store. So we talk of a multi-channel experience, a multi-channel interaction, when our application, our website has several channels, has several touch points, several ways of interacting with them, but those channels are not connected in any way. So imagine a website where I use the mobile web version of that website, and I can't find the feature I'm looking at. I'm pretty sure that you have suffered that experience, that you want to connect to a website and you want to, I don't know, buy something or see the reviews or something, and you see that the mobile version of the website doesn't have that feature, doesn't have that capability. So that's what we would call a multi-channel world, a multi-channel interaction, where the mobile application or the mobile website has a completely different set of features than the website. So I can interact with the website and I can interact with the mobile application, but the features are different and the ways of using it are different. And we talk about a cross-channel interaction when we use two channels, we use two touch points to do something. So for example, when I arrived here, I bought my ticket with my computer, my plane ticket, and then I downloaded it with a PDF file and use it on my mobile phone to enter the plane. So I use my mobile phone to complete the interaction of arriving here, of interacting with the airplane company. And I use two channels. I use my computer to buy the ticket and then my mobile phone to access it. But the airplane company, the company that where I bought my tickets, when I accessed it with my mobile phone, it didn't knew that I was going to use that ticket. It just presented me a login screen, and then I log in, and then I just saw my last purchases. It didn't know if I was going to board an airplane, if it had to present that recently bought ticket. But Google, for example, already suggested me, okay, I know that you are going to board a plane in 2 hours. Here is the email with your ticket if you want to access it. This is the kind of experiences we want to pursue, we want to achieve. The ones that all the history of the user, all the reasons and the previous interactions with the website, with their application, are stored, and the application knows what the user is going to do, what the user is going to request, because we already interacted with the website. We already told them, okay, I've just bought this ticket and I'm going to use it in this specific date. So this is the kind of interactions we want to pursue. That this kind of omnichannel experiences everyone is talking about, where all the channels, all the touch points are used, and the history and the interactions of the users aren't lost between channels, between touch points. Okay. So a small brief sentence with the idea I want to make my point across. It's we try to seamlessly engage with customers across all channels. So the keyword here is seamlessly. We want to provide a user experience where the user doesn't have to know, or the user doesn't have to care if he already logged in, if he already requested that ticket, because all the history of his interaction is kept between all the websites, applications, etc. Okay. So I could talk all day about why these kind of experiences are better for customers, users, and with the end goal to your company, from to your sorry. But I'm going to focus on just one metric, and it's one metric we kept discussing here at Liferay. It's consumer rotation. I'm pretty sure that all of you have experienced a bad user experience with, for example, a network company or a mobile company where you have an issue and you have to call customer support and you have to explain several times your problem, 3 or 4 times, and you kept explaining your problem and talking with several different people, and that data of your problem isn't kept anywhere. You have to keep repeating all your issues, all the issue at hand, because no one is keeping that data across channels, across interactions. So what we want to achieve is an omnichannel engagement, because that is going to make our users happier, and it's going to drive more money to our business. That's the final objective. Okay. So in the real world, users doesn't care about if they are interacting with 2 channels, 3 channels, a specific number of channels. They are only interacting with a website, an application. They are only trying to do something. So what us as companies want to do is to respond to the needs of the user. The user is not thinking, okay, I'm going to go to a store and then look for a discount and then use that discount to buy with a mobile phone, and then use that discount to buy that item. It's not thinking of all the channels he's using. It's just trying to find a discount. He's not actively thinking of all the touch points he's crossing. He's just only trying to do something, trying to find a better deal, buy more things, whatever. But he's not actively thinking on all the interactions he's doing. What we want to do is just to respond to the needs of the user. And that means that we would have to worry about omnichannel experiences, but it's not the main goal. The main goal is to responding and connecting with the user, with the customer. Okay, so we want to achieve this, a continuous user experience. Okay, why users use several channels? This is not rocket science. In the end, they want to save money. They want to save time. So an example of trying to save money is going to a store or interacting with a website and then trying to find discounts or coupons in another website to try to lower that price. An example of trying to reduce risk is, I'm pretty sure that most of you have done it, is looking in the internet for some reviews of one item and then going to a store to talk with the salesperson and try to see if your ideas of that product were validated or confirmed by that salesperson. Another example of saving time is just talking with your family or with your friends about a specific item that you want to buy, and then going to a store with the decisions already made, without having to involve all the people and go to the store with all those people involved in the decision, or to obtain further information. I always, when I want to buy something, I'm always looking with my mobile phone to see reviews and see if the item I'm seeing in the supermarket, whatever, it's good, it has good reviews, etc. So I'm using several channels just to obtain more information and to confirm my own beliefs. So what customers demand? What do they want? When they interact with our website, with our application, what do they request? They want a consistent branding across every touch point. They don't want fragmented user experiences where I access a website and then I access the mobile application and they are completely different. And I don't remember I can't use all the interactions and all the user experience patterns I learned in the website. I can't use them on the application because they are completely different, and because of the branding and the colors, they are completely different. I found those kind of interactions and applications very hard to use. And they also want a unified consumer data. I've talked about this a lot right now. I want my history and the sum of all the interactions I've done with the website, with the application, kept somewhere, because the application has to be smart and be able to return to the point I was interacting with it. In the case, for example, of a form, if I'm filling a form in a website, I want to be able to go to my mobile application or my mobile website and still be able to fill that form in the state I was left. So those users are demanding those kind of interactions. And they want consumer-centric products. I'm pretty sure that most of you have interacted with a government website where they are just listing all the services the government is providing, but those services are not listed in a customer-centric view. They are just showing all the departments that the government has. But if I want to find a specific task I want to achieve, I want to accomplish, like filling my taxes or sending a suggestion, it's completely impossible to find, at least in the Spanish government websites, because they are just focusing on all the services the government is providing, but not in the customer, not in the client, not in the people, the citizens. And they also want personalization depending on the user context. So users right now, myself included, are very demanding, and they want, we don't want a generic experience where the website, the application doesn't know anything about me. So these kind of problems, these kind of interactions result in these typical problems in what I've talked about fragmented user experiences, where the website is completely different than the application, in completely lack of backend integration, where the application doesn't know anything about the user, the task they were doing just 5 minutes ago in the website. They lead to competing consumer experience, where the website is trying to push for some specific patterns, user experience patterns that the mobile phone doesn't follow. And they also lead to inability to track customers. It's pretty common that you don't know if a specific customer accesses to your website or your application, and when did they do it, etc. So how can we try to solve this? I've read a lot of articles, and I've practiced and tried a lot of techniques, and I want to focus just in these small tips. There are no silver bullets in this field, so it's just generic tips that we are going to see how can we try to implement them with Liferay. One is to try to focus on a single unifying platform, to use a specific platform to serve as the main platform to base all of our interactions. And this platform is going to provide us of the generic user patterns, of the generic, of the specific brand look, etc. And that platform is going to provide us, as just told, the branding and the user experience. And we want to be able to learn how customers want to engage. So we want to track the users, and we want to know how the customers engage with our mobile applications, with our websites, to be able to customize them and to be able to provide them specific features. Okay, so how can Liferay help? So we have talked about this a lot in other symposiums. Liferay DXP wants to be that single unifying platform. So I'm pretty sure that most of you agree, because you are here in this symposium. But in the specific field of mobile, how can we use Liferay to be able to achieve these goals? How many of you have seen this page, this web page? Okay, I see like 10 hands raised. I'm pretty worried. So this is the JSON API web page. All the web services Olaf was talking in the first session are available here, or you can make them available here. So he was interacting with several services. So if those services are remote, you are able to call them remotely, and you are able to spend them here and to list all the parameters and do an example HTTP call, an example JavaScript call, etc. So Liferay, it's automatically creating those services for the core features of the portal, and you can call them through JavaScript and reuse that core functionality from your mobile phone, from your other website that is accessing them through JavaScript or whatever. So these services are already available, and these features, you can query them and access them, that information, from anywhere you want. So being able to do this, how many of you have worked with the Liferay Mobile SDK? Okay. So this is an example. This web page lists us how to query that services, those services through JavaScript. But there is a tool in Liferay that's called the Liferay Mobile SDK that allows us to call all those services through Java or through Objective-C. So this would be the sample of a Java call that we could do through a native Android application, and it just needs a session, a valid session with a username and password, whichever parameters you need to do that network request. And of course, there is an Objective-C version. I'm pretty sure that I thought that most of you were aware of this, but well, there is also another way of doing it. This is a sync version, asynchronous version, where I'm waiting for the result of the call to follow my computations. And this is the asynchronous version, where I am posting a callback and then retrieving the response. Most of Android programmers or most of Java programmers, I'm afraid that they don't know that this kind of particular solution has a very important problem with the orientation, because Android recreates the Java class that does this request or whatever network request in each change of rotation or in each transition to the home page, etc. So this is a normal Android problem. And the mobile SDK doesn't do exactly anything to solve it, but there are other kinds of solutions that I'm going to explain just in 1 second. So how many of you have used the Liferay Mobile SDK builder? Okay, so just one hand. Okay. Any code that you have built with the service builder can have a remote API that you can call through JavaScript, through Java, or through Objective-C, or in the case with the mobile SDK 2, through Swift code. So if you have written code based on the Liferay service builder, you can expose a remote API just with a console call. It's not a very nice API because it's just through console, but if you are programmers, I'm pretty sure that you can write just a Gradle command. So this command is going to create a Java or an Objective-C API that you can query, and it gives you this kind of features gives you a nice Java and Objective-C API, as I just did here, where you can request to your remote service either asynchronously or synchronously. It automatically does session management, so you can do that request passing either using basic authentication or Auth1 with a specific portlet, digest authentication, JSON Web Token, and in the new version, a cookie authentication. So you can reuse the cookie you use to access your website in the mobile application. It also allows you to use a global configuration. The nice thing is that you have a uniform API, so you can use the same API you should be currently using to access Liferay own services to access your own, and it does automatically the parsing of the request, of the string request, and the object wrapping. Olaf mentioned that you have to pass the service context, and the service context object is awful because it has several things, and you have to remember which several things to pass. Imagine passing that service through a remote API where you have only strings, and you have to transform them in JSON objects. So this mobile SDK API automatically does that. So if you have any kind of services built on top of the service builder, you can expose them and call them remotely. Instead of doing an ugly HTTP call and then parsing the response, this kind of builder allows you to create automatically an API. So, and there is also the Liferay Mobile SDK too. I'm pretty sure that no one is using it right now. Who is using it here in this audience? Okay. So this new version of the Liferay Mobile SDK, it works with your custom API. So if you have an API that is not built on top of the service builder, you can just model it through annotations in the same way that you are used to if you use just JAX-RX or the Spring REST API, that you are using annotations to model your API. The mobile SDK, the version 2, allows you to create an API with Swift and Java code that uses that annotations to automatically create an API. So it's annotation-based, allows default parameters, so you don't have to worry about passing 30 parameters in each call, because you can set defaults. As if you saw the Olaf's code, he had a request to add user, and add user needs like 30 parameters. So instead of passing those 30 parameters over and over again, you can just set defaults and call a small method with just 5 or 10 parameters, the ones you need. So that feature is nice. It also has sync and asynchronous support, but it solves automatically the orientation problem in Android. So it's keeping a handler that is connected with the current activity. So if you are Android programmers, I recommend you to look at it. And it does automatically POJO parsing. So if you define a plain old Java object, the one that you are returning automatically parses it, your JSON or your string method to that plain old Java object. So you can model the API like that, but all the default APIs of the portal are already modeled, so you can just query them. But if you have your own custom API and you don't want to, and you can generate them with a mobile SDK builder, you can model it like that. So I'm just using annotations to specify the path to the web service. This has been copied bad. So ignore those spaces because URLs doesn't have spaces. And you can pass default parameters here, for example. And you can query that with this kind of API. Is any of you using Retrofit? It's the most popular networking library for Android. So this is the same API as Retrofit to allow Android programmers to just use the mobile SDK without learning anything specific to Liferay. It's the same pattern as the most popular networking library in Android. So we are just building this interface, and it allows us to call it automatically. And we can query it again asynchronously or synchronously. So in this case, I'm calling it asynchronously, passing a callback. Here I would put my code of if the networking call fails or if it is successful. And it, in background, parsing the JSON object that this network calls returns into a user-side object that I created with just a plain old Java object, getters and setters. Okay. So it has several nice things that you should be using, like request cancellation. I can cancel a request in the middle of the request. It has a better configuration API than the mobile SDK one, and it also has a RxJava integration. That it's the hot thing right now in the mobile world. So, okay. I don't know if you knew, but Liferay introduced a new way of building new APIs. If you don't like the existing APIs of the portal, you can grab them or create your own APIs through JAX-RX support. It was introduced in the latest DevCon. Is anyone of you using it? Okay, some hands. So you can create your own custom API or wrap an existing one with the portal and use the best practices to wrap them. So you can set default parameters for existing SDK, for existing APIs, or whatever you want, or pass default values, or change the query parameters, etc. It works with the mobile SDK too. Also, you just have to write the interface to wrap it. Okay. So this slide failed, and it was a GIF. I'm going to reload quickly. I haven't seen that error. Okay, so okay, I will continue. This is new. That's Google Slides failing to show a GIF. I think it's because it's quite big. So I've talked about reusing features. With the mobile SDK, with the new APIs, you can reuse existing code that you have. You can expose it through remote APIs and just with your mobile phone through JavaScript, Java, or Objective-C, call that feature and render the result, whatever you want. But we also want consistent branding. And for that, we have one solution within Liferay that's called Liferay Screens. Has anyone of you heard about it? Liferay Screens, yeah, just some few hands. So Liferay Screens, it's a component-oriented framework. And the idea is to wrap those portal calls, those instance calls, Liferay instance calls, and to allow to present an interface. So the mobile SDK just deals with the Java on Objective-C code, but it doesn't provide any kind of interface. It's your it's your task, your responsibility to provide that interface. Liferay Screens provides default interfaces to the common features of Liferay. So, for example, this is a component to show a sign-up form. And the way of providing a consistent interface is through a specific feature. I'm just going to discuss just two features of Liferay Screens. And one is themes. So with themes, you can use the kind of experience, the kind of functionality that you're used to in Android or in Swift code. That in the case of Swift code, for creating an interface, you would use a sieve, a specific class to create an interface. And in Android, you would create an XML. So if you pass that XML or that sieve to Liferay Screens, and you follow a specific contract that is called a view model, Liferay Screens can render that feature based on that view model. So in this case, I'm showing the same component, a sign-up component, but I'm passing 4 different views. In this case, 4 different XMLs. And Liferay Screens presents an interface completely different, but is reusing the same core code. So the code to connect to the portal, the code to do the request, the code to return the results, or to show a failure message, it's reused to those components. And the idea is that you use these already pre-built components and you customize them with your specific colors, specific layouts, specific views, and just use them in all your applications. So that way you can provide a consistent brand in all your applications, in all your mobile interactions with your colors, your brand, etc., but reusing the existing code to connect to Liferay, to deal with the errors, etc. So for that, we have one example of reusing a core feature is a gallery. We have the ability to store files in a document library. So we can use that document library and just specify a folder to store images. So one component we are providing is a gallery. We do the request to the document library. We return the images. We cache those images, and we present them. And you just have to provide if you want to show that image in a grid, in a slideshow, or in a list. You decide which kind of layout or final view you want to present, and we do the heavy lifting of retrieving those images. We have 22 components, and it's growing. Another nice component with the idea of reusing the features of the Liferay instance is an asset display. You just pass an asset key, and the asset display is able to render a blog with the format of a blog, a file, a PDF with a PDF viewer, an image with an image viewer, etc. So it's able to render each asset depending on the type of the asset. A journal article, it will download the HTML of the article and present it. An user, it will call a user-specific component, etc. So we are working on 2 new components. One is a portlet display that we are going to present in the DevCon, and it's going to be able to show a portlet and capture the events based on the key of the portlet, and allow you to specify different behavior depending on the events of the portlet. And another is support for workflow that a lot of people has asked for. Okay, so if we wrap that call, that existing call that I showed you of the Liferay Mobile SDK 1, and if we use them with the screens is behind using all the features of the Liferay Mobile SDK, we get an improved session management, so we can do things like retry the authentication if it failed, for example. We can do support for offline mode, so we can just grab that event we are returning and cache and store it in an offline cache. And we can also solve the orientation problem and 3D support, a common problem that Android programmers face. So we have like more than 10 demo apps. So if you have any problems with a specific Liferay service, just throw us a call in the forums, because I can assure that we have already deal with it in some way. So if you want to see some inspirations of things you can do with Liferay in mobile, there are a lot of examples you can base your work on. Okay, so another way of trying to bridge to provide those kind of omnichannel experiences is to track how customers interact, how users interact with our applications and our mobile versions. And one way is to track all the information of the user. So here I'm presenting a demo application that is using analytics to track if the application starts, where the DDL form of Liferay is showing, if the user has spent a lot of time in filling one form, etc. And it's just sending the information to the portal in the same format as Liferay Connected Services is doing right now. So it's just filling all the values that we know of the user information, the timestamp, the time spent in the form, and sending it automatically to the portal to allow us to write a specific code depending on the time of on the kind of behavior of the user. And another way of interacting with the user, and Milen talked about it, it's with WeDeploy integration. So here the team in Liferay Mobile has worked with the WeDeploy team to provide APIs and a native API through Java code and a Swift API. to allow us to write with Liferay and WeDeploy applications like this. So we have written down a WhatsApp clone. Sorry for the blatant copy of the styles of WhatsApp. So this is a WhatsApp clone written in WeDeploy that is using WeDeploy Web and our application, a native application in Swift or in Android. And it's showing live data either with WebSockets. In this case, we are using WeDeploy. So the code to write this in an Android application with the WeDeploy integration is just these 2 slides. I'm going to just mention them, and we can talk about them later. So this is a Java code to access WeDeploy. We are just passing the URL, limiting the number of messages, and order them by ID, and that's all. We are returning a callback to render those messages on the view. And this is automatically returning all the existing latest 100 messages existing on WeDeploy. And to query them live, we are just doing a call like this. So we are retrieving messages, just the latest one, and we are querying live the messages table stored in WeDeploy. And when an event happens, we render the latest message. So this is a WhatsApp clone in just 2 simple, it could be one-liners, but would be very long one-liners. And we have an existing chat or WhatsApp copy. So the WeDeploy integration that is available with Java and Swift code, it's also providing us access to all the data APIs, but also the auth APIs that currently the WeDeploy supports, and the email client. And we are providing new capabilities and features every day. So just to finish with 2 small things, I haven't talked about the push integration, but Liferay has a portlet, a push portlet that allows you to send push notifications integrated with a push Android SDK and a push Swift SDK. So it also has integration with Liferay screens, and it allows you to send push notifications just with 1 line of code when the push portlet is installed. So the idea of this talk is to show you different user experiences that are based on Liferay, and they are using all the mobile capabilities Liferay is currently building. So, for example, we have talked about using the features, the functionality of your Liferay DXP, of your Liferay portal, with mobile SDK on screens. We have talked about tracking customers with analytics, that's currently working. Using live data, either with WeDeploy or WebSocket support existing in Liferay DXP. Using, I mentioned the push notification, and we can also customize experiences with audience targeting, and there is a very good talk in the latest DevCon of Pavel about it, of complex user experiences with audience targeting. I recommend you that talk because it's pretty amazing. So I haven't discussed the elephant in the room, but I wanted to just mention it in 1 minute. All these features are available in the native world. We have some existing solutions, and we have a lot of work done already. Some of them already released about hybrid applications. I wanted to know which I have linked to a small survey in the latest slide that I recommend you to fill to see if you are currently using some of the features Liferay is providing, or you are currently using some hybrid framework. We have all the features I've shown you with Liferay screens are available with through native script. I don't know if you know the technology. It's using Angular to provide native technology, native applications written in JavaScript. And we have some work and some components ported with React Native. So if any of you are using Xamarin or Ionic 2, we are looking at it and working on bridging that gap and providing features that we have already in the native mobile world to those technologies. But please come with me and we can talk about them. So the idea is we have some clients that have implemented native applications with these technologies, and some of them, before asking for feedback, they released a video, and they mentioned this sentence that was perfect for my talk. They mentioned that those technologies in specific Liferay screens allow them to create a web-based intranet with a continuous seamless user experience. So that's our goal here. And for that, I ask you, I request you, what things are you missing to integrate Liferay with your mobile ideas, applications, integrations? And I present you with a small survey that I want you to fill to see what we can pursue to allow us to help you better. So that's all. If you have any questions, please.
You have mentioned that you have about roughly 10 applications using Liferay SDK and screens. So my question is, some of them open source, and if it's the case, where we can find the sources?
All of them are open source. So all this work, except specific portlets, in the case of the OAuth integration, it's open source. And I have them in my links of the slides. So when the people of the conference shares the slides, it will be available for all. So there are 5 of them that are available in the main repository of Liferay screens under demo apps, and there are the most advanced ones that integrates all the components, and there are also push integration, etc. But I will share the links of all the demo applications. Any more doubts? Yeah?
Hello. In Liferay Portal, we've got a SAML2 plugin, which allows us to initiate a session from an external identity provider. I'd like to know if you plan to provide the same kind of feature to initiate a session context based on an external identity provider. In short term, maybe SAML2, and maybe in the future also OpenID Connect, if it would make sense. Do you have something like this in the roadmap?
Yeah, definitely. We have worked with...
Great.
We have done several tests with OAuth support, but we know that we currently support OAuth 1, and that this is a problem with several single sign-on tools. So the solution with OAuth 1, it's working. It's only restricted to DXP and Liferay instances, so it's not community and open source. But we have support from to OAuth 2 coming down in the pipeline, so that should solve this kind of problems with single sign-on. We haven't tested yet with single sign-on. We tested Liferay OAuth 1 support, but it should solve this kind of problems. But I don't know the licensing deal of that. I'm sorry.